We could divide it into two. Understanding life's mysteries through Bhishma's vision. The first section of the chapter, especially the first 22 verses, are highly loaded section and verses by Bhishma Dev. It touches very common and repeated themes of sufferings of devotees, Krishna's will, destiny, the workings of time, all of these topics. So, understanding life's mysteries through Bhishma's vision in these first 22 verses. And then the second section is where Bhishma Dev shows the perfection of his devotional absorption. And here, Yudhishthira Maharaj is unwilling to become the king. He is not willing to do his service. So, is also showing by his personal example to Yudhishthira Maharaj how just by doing or executing Krishna's will, you will be able to actually achieve perfection. And he shows it by his personal example. I have executed the will of Krishna, even though it was very difficult thing to do. Especially in the case of Bhishma, he was fighting on the opposing side of Dharma by the inspiration of Krishna, which is a very hard thing to do. We would all be like to seen as a good devotee. For the sake of Krishna's service, to be fighting on the opposing side of Dharma and for the rest of eternity to be considered as someone who sided with Adharma is not an easy task. So only someone as great as Bhishma could be so selfless for the sake of serving Krishna. And that's what he is showing to this. I executed the call of his will, even though it was extremely difficult. And now you see how much I can actually absorb myself in Krishna. What to speak of me absorbing myself in Krishna? That very Krishna is personally situated here to see me pass away. So, what more do you need? Here is an example. If you fulfill the will of Krishna, Krishna will take care of you. Do not worry. So, that he is showing by his personal example in the second section of the chapter from verses 23 to 49 onwards. So, today, Krishna willing, the plan is to see the section 1 maybe until verses 28 or 29, just before the prayers of Bhishma Dev begins. And in the following week, hopefully we will be able to spend our times exclusively on Bhishma Dev's prayers. I assume it could be 1 or 2 weeks, not more than that. So this week the idea is to see from verses 1 to 28, 29 until Bhishma Dev prayers begins. And it's only a plan. We don't know. It could be just the first section, or half the section. I don't know. But the idea is to actually see the one whole first section of understanding life's mysteries through Bhishma's vision. Prabhupada has written very beautiful purpose. So we will try to see. I could not make slides for each verse specifically because of my laziness. However, I have summarized the translations, and using that, I have put some bullet points. Using that, I will just elaborate on them for this week. Hopefully, for the prayers, we will have slides for each verse. I'm going to give a quick overview of the chapter, which we will continue to see throughout the chapter. So we won't go into details now. There are 49 verses. As I said, the first 24 verses could be considered as the first section, and where actually in the first 11 verses we see the scene of Bhishma Dev's passing. He does not pass away in these verses. Basically, how he is lying in the bed of who is coming to actually meet him, including the Pandavas and Krishna, who others were there. And that whole setting of the scene happens in the first 11 verses. And then Bhishma Dev's first reaction to seeing the Pandavas. That's what is shared in the verses 12 to 17. And then he also speaks about Krishna's true identity until verses 24. And then he instructs Yudhishthira to whatever Krishna's desire was, accordingly he fulfills. So Bhishma Dev's life is one of complete surrender. Until the time of dying, he continues to execute the will of Krishna. And that's what we see between the verses 25 to 28. Even at that moment, he fulfills the desire of Krishna by instructing Yudhishthira Maharaj. And then his final moments and his passing is discussed, especially his prayers is discussed between verses 30 onwards until 42. And we will see those in the coming week. Since we are going to see each section in detail, I'm not going to go into any much summary now. Let's save the time in terms of, anyway, we will see all these things as we begin each section. So now that we are going to discuss the first 11 verses, the summary is that Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was extremely overcome by guilt, assuming a personal responsibility for the death of all the people in the Kurukshetra war. So he becomes overburdened by guilt and under the instructions of Krishna, he approaches Bhishma Dev, who is on his deathbed, who is on his arrow bed. And there are various other sages who come to see Bhishma Dev pass away. And of course, Lord Krishna is also there. And the place and the scene is very spiritual, surcharged, and potent, with so many divine personalities gathering to witness Bhishma's glorious departure. And that's what we will see in the first 11 verses. So, extremely troubled by guilt after the war for having caused the death of thousands and thousands of people, Yudhishthira Maharaj actually goes to the battlefield. There he meets or sees Bhishma Dev, who was lying on the bed of arrows, and he was about to pass away. He had Ichha Mrityu, he had the ability to pass away at his own will. So he could have died very early. He fell on the 10th day of the Mahabharata war. However, he survived another 58 days, the 8 days of the remaining 8 days of the war, and approximately 50 more days, according to what I read. So he survived another like 60 days, which is like approximately 2 months after he was fell. He could have actually chosen to leave if he wanted. There was nothing binding him. However, he chose to wait because he knew Krishna has some service for him still. And that is why he waited under Krishna's inspiration. And we see that in the following verses. In the first verse, the Goswami is explaining, starting the chapter, he says, he was so afraid or he was so guilty for having killed so many subjects, so many people on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So, therefore, went to that scene of massacre where Bhishma Dev was actually lying on a bed of arrows about to pass away. It could be very hard because what he is fearing about, that is where exactly Krishna is taking him. So we could see sometimes in order to actually heal us, Krishna might take us to, we might want to run away from the problem, seeing that will, thinking that will heal us. In certain situations, it's not always universally that's how it should be. But here in this case, Krishna takes Yudhishthira Maharaj back to the very battlefield because of which he is troubled by guilt. So all the bloodshed is still there. The signs of the bloodshed is there. All the devastation that was caused during the war is all there. And more than anything, Bhishma Dev himself is lying on a bed of arrows, which is also the cause of, which is also the result of the war. And Krishna, in order to pacify Yudhishthir Maharaj, is not taking him to a peaceful pace in the sense of it. He's not taking him to a like a forest or like a beautiful lake or covered with trees and flowers. No, he's taking him back into that battlefield. So sometimes in life we see that we try to run away from a situation, and we see that by Krishna's arrangement we repeatedly encounter the a similar or the same environment or situation. That is Krishna's way of trying to actually help us grow instead of just running away, because withowithout healing we won't heal the external situations. And in after bringing him, what is the scene explained by Sutta Goswami? Sutta Goswami saying at that time, all his brothers, they also followed him in beautiful chariots, and they were all like decorated with golden ornaments. And they did not go alone. They also were accompanied by Vyasadeva and Daumya Rishi, who is also the Kulaguru of their personal priest, their personal spiritual master, and many others. So they took all of them and they went to the battlefield of Kurukshetra to meet with Bhishma. And who else was there? The Supreme Lord Krishna also followed them, seated on a chariot with Arjuna. So thus King Yudhishthira is being explained like Kuvera, because Kuvera is the wealthiest of the demigods. And here Yudhishthira Maharaj appeared extremely aristocratic, rich, opulent, dressed well, and then he is being taken to see Bhishma. So if you think about it, why dress? Like why was Yudhishthira Maharaj feeling guilty? We already discussed. And why actually dress opulently while visiting a dying man? If you think about it, even in general society, if a person passes away, even you sometimes see rich people when they go to attend a funeral, they dress very simple. They don't show off. You don't put on the best of your best clothes and jewelry and accessories for attending a funeral. Here, however, Krishna has instructed all the Pandavas to dress extremely opulent, and they are looking like a Kuvera, like the richest demigod. And it does not seem very sensitive to go like that fully Sajdaj means fully decked up, to go a person who he's literally lying in an arrow bed and he's about to die, and to go and see him, there is no point in actually dressing so much. But again, it is Krishna who's asking them, so they are following it. Why? Because Krishna understands the heart of Bhishma Dev better than anybody else. So externally, we may not understand a particular situation or behavior of a devotee. However, based on Krishna's inspiration, here the Pandavas have dressed opulently, and that's what will actually please Bhishma Dev, because wanted to always see the Pandavas situated properly, and he did not like the injustices that were meted out to them, and he wanted them to be the king and to have the kingdom. There was no doubt about it. So he would be actually happy while dying that at last his desires are fulfilled. So Krishna was doing all of these things to reciprocate with Bhishmadev, to make Bhishmadev happy. That's what was Krishna was looking at. So Krishna is taking all the necessary things to make Bhishmadev happy for all the services and surrender he has done in all through his life. So when after dressed very nicely and they arrived at the battlefield, they all saw Bhishmadev lying on the ground. Swami saying like a demigod fallen from the sky. God has fallen from the sky. He was lying there in the arrow bed. All of the Pandavas, including Krishna, they all bowed down before Bhishmadev. So there in the purport also Prabhupada writes that Krishna, even though is the Supreme Lord, he was also playing the part of a family member. So he also behaved in a humanly custom and bowed down before the dying Bhishmadev. And Bhishmadev was also by age externally was actually elder. So it's very interesting to see that how Krishna had to always balance all these details of customs, despite being the Supreme Lord, knowing everything and orchestrating everything, being completely omniscient. He also had to put the other hat of having to behave according to the immediate situation and human customs. So it would be interesting to observe how Krishna, like in a seamless way, manages both. He is omnipotent. He's conscious of his supremacy. At the same time, he also forgets his supremacy or adjusts his supremacy to the immediate circumstances. So only Krishna can beautifully do that, seamlessly maintain all those various moving parts in the equation. And now that they all offered obeisances, Bhishma Dev is looking at them. And so many others have also had come to meet with Dev and be in his presence. Various sages' names are all listed in these verses, like Parvatani, and Dev himself was there, Brihadashva, Bharadvaja, Parashurani, and so many others. They were all there, Gautam Rishi, Kaushik Muni, and everybody was a Kana, who's and who's of those days. They were all there because Bhishma Dev was a very well-known personality, and even Shukadev Goswami's name is also included. So they all were there to actually see Bhishma Dev pass. And Bhishma Dev is one of the Vasus in his other Sundaran Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Is
Anyway.
my voice coming through okay?
Yes, bro.
Okay, Hare Prabhu. So I have a question. So about the passing of
Mm.
Bhishma at the very outset, we see that Arjun also asked that question, right, in Bhagavatam earlier, that why I'm not able to enjoy anything because everyone will pass away. I won't be able to enjoy the kingdom. Similarly, we can see very simply seeing this Mahabharata series where Bhishma Dev was so torn by the fact that both the Pandavas and Kauravas they're fighting, so he's not able to see that stability in the kingdom. And now, literally, he is lying on his deathbed, as you said, and so he will not be even able to see a few days of the peaceful rule that follows, where his Pandavas, who are dear to his heart, are ruling. So he won't even be able to see that or enjoy that in the worldly sense. And also, I was thinking of Prabhupada coming towards the end of his life, just last 10, 13 years, he did so much. But whole life he had to struggle through league of devotees and so on. So is there a reason for all this? Is it the whole message is that Krishna is trying to say that we should not get overly comfortable with this world, or it just takes so long for to break through certain things? I'm just trying to understand if there is some overall thing that you can share.
Thank you, sir. Dev himself answers this in the verses 12 to 17. That's the theme he actually explores also. Then, how do we understand Krishna's plan and how does a devotee actually navigate all of these things? So, that's literally the theme that he speaks to the Pandavas between verses 12 and 17. So, we will take it. Thank you for preluding, like having a perfect connection from this section to the next section. And here we see in this particular verse that how all these great personalities have assembled. Dev himself, who's the one of the eight Vasus, he received all of them and he welcomed all of these great personalities because he knew how to adjust the religious principles according to time and place. And this is a very important place. We can see the ecstasies of Srila Prabhupada in his purports. And it was not a coincidence that he actually became the world Acharya because he wrote these words, these purports, when he was still in Radha Damodar temple, because this is the first canto. He wrote it in the Radha Damodar temple. He had not started his worldwide preaching. He was just preparing for it. But how much he was conscious of his mission, what was to come, that he writes a very nice line in this purport. He says, there are different climates and situations in different parts of the world. And if one has to discharge his duties to preach the message of the Lord, he must be expert in adjusting things in terms of the time and place. And if you read the whole purport, this particular sentence has a good context. If we read the whole purport, that where Prabhupada speaks about any expert religionist or spiritualist, they know perfectly well how to adjust the religious principles in terms of time and place. And he says, all the great acharyas or religious preachers or reformers, they have always executed their mission by adjusting the necessary principles in terms of time and place. And that's when he says this line that there are different climates. So he is meditating on the West. He is understanding because the culture of a land is always determined by the climate of the land also. The climatic conditions play a very crucial role in the culture of a particular land. And today we don't have regard for it because of modern advancement. We are actually spoiling those very conditions which are favorable for practicing bhakti. Even it means of having a proper climate, proper weather conditions. So when it gets disturbed, then the culture also changes. So that's why here Prabhupada is very consciously addressing that. But if you go to a different place with a different culture, and if you want to preach in that particular place, and it will have different weather patterns and it will have different situations like political situations, social sensitivities, they all will be very different. And he understood that and he was meditating on it very clearly. So it's no wonder that Prabhupada was an expert in adjusting things according to the time and place, which was one of the primary reasons for his success in the West. Of course, his purity. Based on his purity and maturity, he could adjust things in such a nice way that he could make his movement palatable and appealing to the Western audience. So these lines are so inspiring to read that he wrote these things and he was meditating on them well before coming to the West. So there are different climates and situations in different parts of the world. And if one has to discharge his duties to preach the message of the Lord, he must be expert in adjusting things in terms of the time and place. And after receiving everybody, Bhishma Dev, now he actually starts speaking. So Suta Goswami is saying how the Supreme Lord Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, yet he is manifested his transcendental form externally also. And that very Lord was sitting before Bhishma Dev. He's Krishna was also listed among the personalities who had come to visit Bhishma Dev. So one might think, oh, great sages have come, great people have come, and Krishna is also one among them. So Suta Goswami is very clearly differentiating that Krishna is not any other great person. He is actually the Supreme Lord. He uses the word that the Supreme Lord is Jagat. He is situated in the heart of everyone, and He is the Supreme Lord. And yet, He has actually manifested His transcendental form externally also. He is all pervasive. However, He has also come in His apar vigraham, that is transcendental form, by His internal potency. And He is also sitting there next to Bhishma Dev. And Bhishma Dev knows about the Supreme Lord's situation position perfectly. That is why he worshipped the Supreme Lord also duly and specially and specifically. It's not that he was greeting everyone, so he greeted Krishna also, like one among others. Even though Krishna was bowing down before Bhishmadev, Bhishmadev was conscious of the supreme position of Krishna and accordingly welcomed him specially. And in the 11th verse, the last verse of this section, we do see how Krishna is like what's happening between Bhishma Dev and the Pandavas. So all the Pandavas, they were sitting silently. They were overcome with lot of emotions and affection for their dying grandfather. So they were very quietly sitting there. So Bhishma Dev, seeing that they're all quiet and overcome by emotion, he actually greets them. And with tears of ecstasy in his eyes, he was overwhelmed by love and affection for them, and he starts to speak to them. And here we see how the Pandavas could very well they could have misunderstood Bhishma Dev, because imagine, he fought on the opposing side. He was not just any other warrior of the opposing side, he was the commander in chief of the opposing army in that particular war. Maharaj is overwhelmed that all of these deaths have been caused because of me. He could have very well told, I don't want to meet Mishmadev because he is the reason for all these deaths. If he would not have accepted to side with the Kauravas, probably they would have got discouraged. They would not have had such a great army and such a perfect arrangement, and all of these things would not have happened that much. So they could have taken it personally against Bhishma Dev. They would have thought, if there is one person that we want to see the last, that would be Bhishma Dev, because despite being our grandfather, he took the opposing side. He could have very well joined us. They could have had a personal grievance against Dev. But no, they are all pure devotees. So they understood that Bhishma Dev had a certain duty to fulfill. They did not misunderstand him. They actually retained their affection for Bhishma Dev. So unless someone is able to see Krishna's hands very clearly, how Krishna's will plays in each one's life differently, it would be very difficult to actually keep up the relationships without developing any ill feelings towards others. So, be it within a family, it's very hard sometimes to understand the motivations of another person, why they're doing what they're doing, and without understanding it, it would be very hard to maintain our love for those individuals, even when we cannot understand their motivations, because we are all conditioned souls. We don't understand our own motivations, what to speak of understanding others motivations. Most of the times conditioned souls are unconsciously doing, we are not even fully aware some most times why we are doing what we are doing. So in the flow of being carried away by the emotions and feelings, sometimes we are unaware why we are doing what we are doing, what to speak of becoming aware of others motivations and to give them the benefit of doubt. It is very difficult. So without giving the benefit of doubt, it would be very hard to actually keep up relationships, be it in within family or in an association. It's very hard. So here we see that Pandavas, they did not take take it very personally against Bhishma Dev, because Bhishma Dev fought against them. And they did not, Yuvraj did not say, okay, if you want to console me, why are you bringing me to Bhishma Dev? He's the last person who can actually console me, because he fought against me, and because of him also was the war happened, because he kept quiet, he didn't do his duty. So they could have, especially Yudhishthira Maharaj would have felt, could have felt like, no, I don't want to go meet Dev. You want to convince me and you're taking me to the same person who would agitate me. No. They actually retained their faith and affection for Bhishma Dev and how he exalted he is. They knew, because they were all surrendered devotees of Krishna. That is the only reason they could actually understand what Bhishma Dev was going through. And here in the purport also, Prabhupada writes nicely that how when Maharaj Pandu died, all his sons were very little. They were such small children. And they were all brought up by the affection of the elders of the royal family, specifically by Bhishma Dev. And after they were grown up, they were continuously troubled by Duryodhana and company. And Bhishma Dev always very well knew that how much troubles they have been put through because of Dhritarashtra and all of them. And then he knew that Pandavas were innocent and were unnecessarily put into trouble because of these envious people. Still, for various political reasons, he could not take their side. Still, at the last stage of his life, when he saw these favorite grandsons of him sitting gently on his side, they could have actually misunderstood him. They could have actually had anger against him. Still, no, they have actually come to see their loving grandfather pass away. So, Bhishmadev was also very much touched that anybody could have easily misunderstood him, because it is one thing to serve the desire of Krishna, but we cannot control how others will see us. However great we are, in the course of executing our duties and our services, there is no guarantee how others will perceive us. Sometimes some devotees have to execute certain services which are very hard for the larger good, and there will be many devotees who would approach it from many other people who would see it from the outside and may misunderstand and may have grievances against us despite doing it for the sake of serving Krishna. Here Bhishmadev was also overcome by emotions, because he saw his grandsons did not misunderstand him. They retained their affection for him. It really mattered on a human level for Bhishma Dev, because there is nothing for him at this stage when he was dying. If all his family members, especially the beloved ones like Pandavas, they are the only surviving ones anyway. If they had misunderstood him, who would actually vindicate him? His whole life, he has just given it to the family of Kurus. He completely dedicated his life for the sake of his family, and to die thinking that everyone in my family actually misunderstood me. Those whom I served, they were not good people and they're all dead and gone. And those who actually survived, I did not take their side and they all have misunderstood him. If he had to die with that emotionally, it could be a very difficult thing. That is why he is also overcome with emotions, because he realizes, okay, here all my dear grandsons, they have not misunderstood me. They have come here to actually see me at this point of time. So he was also very much overcome by love and affection for all of them, because he saw their suffering, how much they in an injustice, due to injustice, they suffered so much. So he remembers all the great tribulations suffered by these most pious grandsons of his. And so he was the most, Prabhupada is writing, certainly he was the most satisfied man at this point of time, because he saw Yudhishthira finally being enthroned in the place of Duryodhana. So thus he began to congratulate them. He was he was very happy that finally, despite all difficulties and odds, this could happen, that all of these and they being decorated so nicely is giving him the conviction that yes, everything is good and they have become the rightful owners of the kingdom finally. That's why Krishna made them decorate very nicely. Imagine if they had just come in a complete disheveled way, in a super simple way, it would not have given so much pleasure to Bhishma. So Bhishma was finally happy to see the Pandavas dressed so well and having what they actually deserve. And from the 12th verse, we can explore this theme also. Like, why do bad things happen to good people? The theme. Because in the Bhagavatam, generally the world, everybody asks this question, why do bad things happen to good people? Bhagavatam is explaining to us, what do good people do when bad things happen to them? Instead of asking or assuming I'm a good person and what's happening is bad, Bhagavatam is showing what do good people do when actually apparently bad things happen to them. And that's what is the whole science here that Bhishma Dev is going to explain. And these are very famous verses 12 onwards. Bhishma Dev is saying, oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls, Pandavas, suffered for being the sons of religion personified. You actually did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations. They were so hard. Yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, the Supreme Lord, and Dharma itself. Dharma, Achyuta Ashraya. We praise the Brahmanas, Dharma is Dharma, religion, and Achyuta, the Supreme Lord Krishna. So you have been protected by all of the three. That's the only reason you are still alive. Otherwise, under whatever you all went through, you all should have died already so many times. So he's saying, Aho, oh, what terrible sufferings and terrible injustices. He is not worried about himself. He's not saying, oh, means whenever we actually in those circumstances, people could very easily make everything about themselves because he is the central hero of this particular scene. He is the one who is passing away. Everyone has actually come to see him and be in his presence when he is passing. So he is the central character of this scene. So he would be not in the wrong if he spoke about his life and clarified his intentions, why he did what he did, how much he sacrificed for the sake of the Kurufa dynasty. No, nobody would think that is out of place if he did that. He could have very well explained his intentions of siding with the Kauravas. No, he wasn't justifying. It was not about him. Immediately, he was speaking to actually console because he understood what is the desire of Krishna. Why has he brought the Pandavas here? The Pandavas are here, so that especially Yudhishthira Maharaj, so that he could be convinced to take up the kingdom, to assume the kingship, and that is the thing at hand, task at hand, and he fully understands Krishna's will. So he immediately starts to speak about the Pandava situation. He is not speaking about, oh, how I know how much I suffered, how much I sacrificed, still everybody might misunderstand me. No, it was not about him. He was not egoistic. He was not self-absorbed. He was immediately concerned about the suffering and the injustices that the Pandavas suffered, and he is consoling them. Oh, don't think like that. It's you have survived. Be grateful because it's only by the protection of Vipra, Dharma, and Achyuta you have survived. So Prabhupada writes that how Maharaj Yudhishthira was very disturbed by the great massacre that happened during the Battle of Kurukshetra. And Bhishmadev could very well clearly understand that Yudhishthira Maharaj is disturbed and he does not want to become the king. So therefore, he first spoke about the terrible sufferings of Yudhishthira Maharaj. He did not worry about his personal situation. He is currently also lying on a bed of arrows. So immediately he was speaking to console because Master was also and the other Pandavas were put into difficulty by injustice. And he was explaining that this battle of Kurukshetra was not fought because of your selfishness. Please don't think that way. If there were no injustices meted out by Duryodhana and company, this battle of Kurukshetra would not have happened. So the battle of Kurukshetra was fought just to counteract that injustice. So it was the duty to do that. It was not your selfishness. So therefore, you should not regret this gate massacre. You are not the reason primarily. Don't think everything is even dependent on it's all about you. No, it was your duty as a prince to counteract the injustice, and that's why this happened. So do not regret. It was not on your personal responsibility. So he wanted to clearly point it out to Maharaj. And it was not just about the war and the injustice. He was specifically wanted to point out that how they were always protected by the Brahmanas and the Supreme Lord and the religious principles. And by the instructions of the Brahmanas and the devotees and the Supreme Lord, and according to the religious principles, if he had to fight to counteract the injustice, there is no reason to actually become despondent about it. So, since you are always protected by these three items, there was nothing wrong in your actions. So, that is why he is telling Yudhishthira Maharaj, as long as any person he is fully in cooperation with the wishes of the Lord and is guided by the bona fide Brahman, and they strictly are following religious principles in their personal lives and are guided by the will of the Supreme Lord directly, he's saying there is no need for despondency. And Prabhupada writes a beautiful statement. He says, as long as a person is fully in cooperation with the wishes of the Lord, guided by the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and strictly following religious principles, one has no cause for despondency, however trying the circumstances of life. Imagine the circumstances of life of Srila Prabhupada while writing these statements. He had to walk out of his family life. It was not very pleasant experience. All his businesses failed. He had so much responsibility. Still, there was a situation where he just had to walk out. And then he started with all his money. He tried to start the in League of Devotees. That thing failed. So his business failed. His family was not satisfied with him. He could not make them happy. His devotional endeavors were not even successful. And the whole of Gaudiya Math was up in arms amongst each other. And he saw the personal mission of his spiritual master falling apart before his eyes. So much strife. And also he was not getting great amount of help from his other god brothers and supporters. Some of them helped, some of them were sympathetic, but nobody could fully support to the extent that Srila Prabhupada's ability was there in to do service. So in his own life, it is a period of complete turmoil, and he is trying to execute the order of his spiritual master. He is working hard. He has no money, and he is not able to. It's not easy. It was not easy. Every time he printed the Back to Garden magazines, it was not easy. He had to go through a great amount of tribulation to be able to achieve each to publish each month. That's when somebody suggested him, why are you putting so much trouble? Instead, write books. So he took it as an instruction from his spiritual master, and he is still in the first canto, ninth chapter, because he understood my spiritual master is instructing me through this person. If I have to go and preach in the West, I need to have books. Magazines won't cut it. So here he is sitting and writing. And it's not that everything was very peaceful. He was not a very successful person at that point of time. He was not the most appreciated person at that point of time. No, it was extremely trying circumstances of life. No money, no followers, no encouragement. However, he is writing, there is no cause for despondency as long as you are under the guidance of the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, strictly following the religious principles and acting according to the will of Krishna. He had the full shelter of the Goswamis in Radha Damodar temple, and he had the blessings of Radha Damodar by giving him shelter there. And he had a personal vision of Rupa Goswami, his own spiritual master, instructing him to go and preach. And he was perfectly, strictly following the religious principles in his personal life. So, in this way, he was completely under the shelter of bona fide devotees and Vaishnavas and religious principles and the will of the Lord. So, he was not despondent despite living under various trying circumstances in life. So he's writing it from a personally realized state, these statements. And Bhishma Dev, here Prabhupada is writing, as one of the authorities in line, wanted to impress this point upon the Pandavas that Yudhishthira Maharaj, don't be despondent. You did not fight this war on your personal capacity. You had a duty to counteract the injustice, and you were instructed perfectly by all the three, by your own religious principles as a Kshatriya, by the Brahmanas who are guiding you, by the devotees who are guiding you, and the Supreme Lord Himself was with you. And He was also, it was His own will that this war was fought. So you don't need to personally be despondent. You are not just individually responsible for whatever happened. And then he continues to say, it's not just you who suffered, the Pandavas. My daughter in law Kunti also suffered a lot. She's remembering Kunti, how much she had to go through. Because when Pandu died, she was still young. With so many children, she was where she had to take care of as a widow. And as they were growing up, the problems only kept increasing. As her children grew up, she was thinking, okay, now my children will grow up and I'll not have problem. I'll not have any problems. All I have to do is just get my children like properly raised and they will take care of everything. No, as they were rising, there were problems every single turn. And as they even became as elderly as becoming kings, still they gambled and lost everything. So there was constant trouble because of her children that she was suffering. There was never a break. So his life was one of fully, like Prabhupada writes, the sufferings of Kunti Devi are doubly lamented because her life was completely filled with difficulties. And Prabhupada writes, this means that she was destined to suffer by providence. And this one has to tolerate without being disturbed. For the sake of all the pastimes of the Supreme Lord to manifest, she had to go through so much suffering and she tolerated it without being disturbed. And the next verse, we see that Vyasadeva is giving his verdict. Okay, you suffered, all the Pandavas, you all suffered, Kunti Devi suffered, you're all devotees of Krishna. Then how can we understand why do devotees suffer despite being devotees? And not just any normal devotees, Pandavas and Kunti, these are great personalities. So he is giving his opinion. So, Sarva, in my opinion, he is saying he is right in giving his opinion because Prabhupada is usually not very happy when people said, in my opinion, in my, in the sense like devotees can, out of their experience, can share it humbly saying, in my experience. But still, sometimes if you are in the morning Bhagavatam class, it's very dangerous to say, I think, because it can attract a lot of reactions. That's the most dangerous words to say in the morning Bhagavatam class. So here we were saying, sir, in my opinion, we were saying this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. So here it's very interesting that Bhishma Dev is not saying means everything is because of this guy sitting here. He is just sitting quietly among all of us. This guy is the reason for everything. All your suffering, all my suffering, Kunti suffering. He is this guy who's quietly sitting. He's not showing to Krishna the finger and saying, "Oh, this guy is the reason for all our suffering." No, that is not the attitude of a devotee. How he is saying? He's saying this is all due to inevitable time. He knows that time is not independent, is an energy of the Supreme Lord. He himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, just before few days, he told Arjuna that who am I? I am Kala. I am the eternal time. So he is not saying, oh, this person is responsible. He is rather saying this is all due to time. Everything is Kala Kritam. Everything is actually the actions of the time, under whose control everyone in every planet is being moved as if clouds are carried by the wind. I remember this is the verse that this section, and specifically, this is the verse that Maharaj spoke when he's actually passed away in an airplane crash. I'm not sure, 11, maybe 6 or 7. In 2011, this happened. And the whole community was very disturbed, the community of Radha Gopinath temple. They were very disturbed because all of these were very serious devotees doing so much service responsibilities. Yeah, 8 devotees as that. They all passed away in an airplane crash. And Maharaj was in the US at that time and he had to he had to fly back to Mumbai to be with the community, and he gave lectures for 2 or 3 days continuously, and he spoke about on this section. I was new to the community, I was new to the whole thing, and I clearly remember this is the verse he spoke, this is the section he spoke, that how it's very difficult to understand the will of the Supreme Lord. Why would that happen to devotees, that they would pass away in a plane crash? So here, as Sundaranand Prabhu was also asking, Bhishma Dev himself is going through suffering, or Srila Prabhupada went through physical ailment towards the end of his life. And how do we understand the suffering of devotees? And in beginning to answer that question, he is saying, in my opinion, it's all inevitable time. Of course, the overall conclusion will come in the rest of the verses also. That Prabhupada writes here in this purport that everything is controlled by the supreme Kala, a forceful representative of the Lord within the material world. So, therefore, Prabhupada is writing, Yudhishthira should not be sorry for the inconceivable action of time. And he writes a very interesting statement. Everyone one has to bear the actions and reactions of time as long as one is within the conditions of the material world. None of us can say we are beyond the actions and reactions of the time. As long as we are in this material body, we are in the material world, we will always be influenced, and we would have to go through the actions and reactions of the time. We will all grow old. We might all go through some disease. It's very highly likely that many of us will have to face many of these difficult things, as and we will all be facing death one day. So the old age, the disease, and the death, it's always faced by everybody. Nobody is actually exempt just because they are devotees. The actions and the reactions of the time will be will be experienced by everybody. And Yudhishthira should not think that he has committed sins in his previous birth and is suffering the consequence. So this is another important attitude that a devotee needs to understand, that whatever difficulty as a devotee that we go through, it's not necessarily because of the sins that we had committed in the previous birth. Of course, Brahmaji says that then, so that a devotee humbly thinks this is all the past doings of my own past doings, and Krishna has reduced the effect and is just giving a token suffering for my own purification. And in this way, humbly accept whatever is being meted out, whatever is being handed out by the force of time, and continue sthane manovir, continue to be situated in hearing and chanting. And in that way, when somebody is fixed, spiritual world becomes their rightful inheritance, according to Brahmaji. Is Prabhupada contradicting Brahmaji here when he says everyone has to bear the act? Sorry. Yudhishthira should not think that he had committed sins in his previous birth and is suffering the consequence. Will it not be humble on the part of Yudhishthira Maharaj to think, oh, I might have committed sins in the past, so that's what I'm suffering the consequence? And here Prabhupada is saying even the most pious has to suffer the condition of material nature. But a pious man is faithful to the Lord, for he is guided by the bona fide Brahmana and Vaishnava following the religious principles. So these three guiding principles should be the aim of life. One should not be disturbed by the tricks of eternal time. Even the great controller of universe, Brahmaji, is also under the control of that time. Therefore, one should not grudge being thus controlled by time, despite being a true follower of religious principles. So, what Brahmaji is saying in that verse is a mood of a devotee. Here, what Prabhupada is trying to understand, is trying to teach us is, in the name of that mood, we may sometimes blame ourselves. That's what is happening to Yudhishthira Maharaj. He's taking it too personally and blaming himself for everything. That's what is being countered by Bhishma Dev and Prabhupada's words, that we don't need to take it all too personal, that I'm responsible for everything, and then we just cry about it and become completely depressed about things. We also need to understand that there are things beyond our personal influence, that the influence of time, the desire of Krishna, all of these things are there. So we don't need to completely be depressed if something does not go according to our plan. Though the sufferings, when it comes, we may humbly think, oh, this is all the past life sins. Krishna is just mercifully removing these things from my, so that I can come close to him. Let me use this suffering to become more Krishna conscious and if we have that attitude, that is fine. But if we are going to the other extreme of just blaming ourselves, becoming completely self-absorbed and completely blaming ourselves, then that is when Krishna, Prabhupada is saying here, no, you are not the everything, even in your own life. You are not the reason for everything. Don't just think it's your past sins or it's your own failings. It's all time also. It is all Krishna's will. If he wants you to go through something, despite all your abilities, you might go through. And you will not have a reason why you're going through that. It's just Krishna wants. And you may think, what kind of a God he is? Why should I be at the mercy of him? And that is what is surrender is also, which Bhishma Dev is going to speak more in these verses. Suhrit Krishna. Sometimes we have a plan for our life, and it pans out completely differently. And there will be situations where all we can do is just bow our head and thank Krishna and have faith in Krishna that I wanted this, but if this is what you want, I completely have faith that this is for my own good. By your mercy, I accept it. And that's what is here Bhishma Dev is telling. You may think that you are a great son of the Dharma personified. Bhima is a great fighter, and Arjuna is extremely skilled bowman, and more than anything, Krishna is all with you. So why would there be any karma actually? So how can actually there be karmic reactions for you to suffer? Your suffering is not karmic reaction because you are the great son of Dharma and you are protected by Krishna. How will there be any past karma? So when we actually become devotees, when we become counted as devotees by Krishna. When does that happen? When we take bhajan seriously, then that's when a person becomes counted as a devotee by Krishna. It's not just initiation alone. If anybody who actually takes the process of hearing and chanting about Krishna sincerely, then they become counted as a devotee because the faith is basically is in the when the faith in hearing and chanting about Krishna is awakened, then that's when we actually become counted as devotees, not only when we become initiated or anything like that. So the formal connection with Krishna is always there for all souls. But specifically, he counts, there are many emotional devotees, there are some religious devotees, there are many types. What we call as devotees here is someone who has not just faith that Krishna is supreme, but makes Krishna as the goal of life by actually making time for hearing and chanting about Krishna. That is what is the sign of a devotee, that someone spends their time to know Krishna more. So that when we show eagerness to know about Krishna, that's when Krishna counts us as a devotee. Okay, this person is serious. How do we know? He spends his time chanting the names of Krishna. He wants to hear and know about Krishna. So, Shram, these are the things which actually make us to be counted as devotees. If we become initiated and if we actually become lax in these processes, we are devotees because we are done in the past. So Krishna will bring us to awareness that we cannot take these things very lightly because this is the basis of our connection with Krishna. And once we have established this connection, we cannot break it. And when we become inattentive, Krishna will make it known that, hey, you are becoming lax in these things. So he will bring that attention back to us that we have to focus. So here Bhishma Dev is saying that, oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. How wonderful is the actions of the time. Despite you being son of Dharma and Bhima being a great warrior, Arjuna being a great archer, and above all, Supreme Lord himself is with all of you, protecting you, still you all suffered. How can this be karma? This is just the desire of Krishna. And he says, so somebody may think, what the hell? I am just trying to be a devotee, and why would Krishna want me to suffer? Why does Krishna do this to me? And that's why he's saying, no one can know the plan of Lord. No one can understand the plan of Krishna. Even great philosophers have tried and they are completely bewildered. They cannot understand the plan of Krishna. Okay, if I cannot understand the plan of Krishna, what am I supposed to do? If I can't understand, how will I actually deal with the situation? He says, accept the inconceivable plan of the Lord, follow it, don't question it. You may sometimes understand, sometimes not understand what's going on, but understand the will of the Lord. How do I understand the will of the Lord? Be under the protection of devotees, be under the protection of religious principles, be under the protection of the religious principles given by your spiritual master. That is what is the safety net within which a devotee operates. So if we don't understand in a given situation why this is happening, all we have to understand is, let me stay within the safety net of guidance of devotees and the principles given by my spiritual master and the principles of devotional service of hearing and chanting. Having faith that if I do these things, Krishna will take care of me. Even if I don't understand why, what is happening in my life, even if I cannot understand the plan of Lord, to develop that faith that the plan of the Lord is inconceivable, but is ultimately for my personal good. That my Krishna will not do anything that is not good for me. This is what is called as faith. So that's what here Bhishma Dev is telling. Bhishma Dev is not telling Yudhishthira Maharaj all the external reasons for all of those things. No, he's saying, no, you cannot. He's telling this to Yudhishthira Maharaj. One Mahajan is telling to another great devotee that we both cannot understand the plan of the Lord. You just learn to follow it. Do you think I have understood the plan that I am lying here on the arrow bed? Why the Krishna has done this to me? No. And who is more qualified than Bhishma Dev to tell? He's not lying down on a sofa and sipping tea and casually speaking about Krishna's will. No, he's lying in the battlefield in a arrow of bed, like a bed of arrows, and he has personal fully he is following it in his life. He did not ask Krishna, why are you asking me to side with the adharmic people like Duryodhana? The whole world will always think I am a bad person. No, he followed the plan of Krishna, and then he was killed. He was killed using tactics. He was not killed completely with the proper military power. He did not question that. He understood, he accepted that also as Krishna's plan. And he is then lying in the arrows bed of arrows. He is not questioning Krishna, how, what kind of a lord you are. I am becoming an atheist, that you have put me through so much suffering, I don't believe in you anymore. No, he has kept his faith in Krishna in during the most trying circumstances one can imagine, because physical pain is very difficult, it's not easy. Emotional pain is difficult, physical pain is also difficult. So he has gone through all of that. He has gone through the biggest trial of the whole world misunderstanding him. That is even worse than physical pain. That others misunderstanding our intentions is a worst kind of pain. He has gone through all of it, and he accepted it all of that graciously, as just because it is the plan of the Lord. So who more than Bhishma Dev will be actually qualified to speak this? That is why Krishna has brought Yudhishthira Maharaj to Bhishma Dev. Not because he is just a great personality in knowing all the dharmas, because the highest dharma is complete surrender to Krishna. They fully embodied it, lived by it, and was living until the last moment of his life. So there was no other person who is more qualified than Bhishma Dev to tell Yudhishthira, don't just worry about understanding the plan of the Lord. Just follow the plan of the Lord. Just surrender to the plan of the Lord, because the plan of the Lord, the will of the Lord is inconceivable. There was nobody more qualified than Bhishma Dev to say that, because he was living by it. So that's why he is saying, you are now appointed by the will of the Lord as the administrative head, as the king. So he's calling Raj Prabhu. He's saying he is already accepting Yudhishthira Maharaj as the king. He is calling Yudhishthira Prabhu, the Lord, because he's indirectly telling, you have been appointed as the king. Please take care of the subjects. Or take care of your subjects. That is what they are all helpless. If you become despondent, you become discouraged, how will they be able to care for themselves? Because there is nobody else to care for them. It's been a devastating war. They are all completely hopeless and helpless. So there is a call of duty now. Accept the will of the Lord. Don't try to question it. Even if you cannot understand, just surrender to the Lord's will. Everything will be for your benefit. How does that he explain that? He is saying, is Bhagavan Sakshat. He is saying that very Lord, if you accept his will, what will you gain? You will gain what I have gained. At the time of my death, who's sitting next to me? I went through all the trials and tribulations of my life, and I paid the price. And what is the benefit I have received? That very Lord is sitting right before my eyes here to see me actually pass away from this body. Who else will have this great fortune? And that is why usually devotees don't speak big about themselves, but he actually speaks about himself in verse 22. If you follow the will of the Lord, what will you gain? You will gain the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And that's what, and you see, there is a clear example here in my own life. This very Lord, this Krishna, don't think, why should I accept the will of Krishna? Because he is the Supreme Lord. He is the Adyo Narayana. He is the first Narayana. And even great sages like Narada Muni and great devotees like Lord Shiva and Kapila, they all know his glories intimately. Still, they cannot fully understand him. And all these great personalities, because if you see, they are all Mahajanas, including him in the list. He is calling all the Mahajanas names, that we all know his glories intimately. So don't think This, your cousin and your friend and guide and well-wisher, is just any normal person. He is the Supreme Lord. He resides in everyone's heart. He is equal to everyone, and he is not touched by pride or illusion. However, he is specially inclined towards his devotees. Who's a devotee? One who accepts his will as everything, one who surrenders to his will. He is a devotee. And because I am such a devotee, he is now standing here to send me off. So I have done all that was required. It was not easy, but for whatever price I paid, I'm having much more than what I paid for, because I'm having the personal Lord, that Supreme Lord sit here personally before me at the end of my life. Because I was his devoted servant. He's calling himself a devoted servant. That usually devotees don't do. In order to actually impress upon you, he's calling himself. I was an exclusive devotee of Krishna. And see his mercy. Yanmay assumes that the moment that I am about to leave my life, he has come here personally. Krishna, he has come personally to give me darshan. This is the benefit you receive, Yudhishthira Maharaj. If you surrender to the will of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, he will take care of you. He will take care of you when it matters the most. So don't actually doubt his will. Surrender to it, however difficult it may be. Please have faith. Here, there is an example here before your eyes. I went through so much, but here my Lord is standing before to send me off. So you will also have this, because this Lord, our Lord, is impartial. He is, however, he is partial to his pure devotees. So if you surrender, if you become his devoted servant, he will not forsake you. And see that he is sitting before me now. So, in this way, he is actually giving complete confidence to Yudhishthira Maharaj that if you actually follow the Lord's will, everything will be taken care of. So, why do devotees suffer? Once we become counted as devotees, our suffering is the will of Krishna. We may not understand why, but please know that it is for our own good. We have so much illusion, so many things that keeps us away from Krishna. And Krishna, because we don't voluntarily always give it up, then he uses whatever circumstances, people in our lives, everything, so that he could actually bring us closer to him and make us completely dependent on him and on nothing else, so that we can actually come back to him quickly and not have to suffer in this material world life after life, having being distanced from him. So all that matters to Krishna is he wants us to come closer to him as quickly as possible, and whatever that it takes in order to achieve that, he performs that. Sometimes it may be pleasing, most times it may not be. And how we actually accept that with faith, that's what will actually qualify us to be able to receive his mercy completely. So that's what Yudhishthira Maharaj is being taught by Bhishma Dev. And he says, see here my Lord, with his lotus eyes and radiant face, is kindly awaiting me when I leave this world. So this great fortune I have received because of my surrender to Krishna. And in this way, he will continue in the next week. We will see that how he actually speaks. Now that after convincing Yudhishthira Maharaj and consoling him to become a king, in verses 25 to 28, he speaks how can he be a good king. He asks many questions. Yudhishthira Maharaj asks about how to be a good king. He answers all of that, and it's the biggest parva, Bhishma parva in Mahabharata. The majority of the Mahabharata, is a good chunk of Mahabharata, is Bhishma Dev instructing Yudhishthira Maharaj on religious principles. However, Bhagavatam is a Amala Puran. It's not going into all of those varnashram things. Swami just mentions that Maharaj was explained by Bhishma Dev systematically about varnashram and all the various principles and how he should rule. And also systematically he says that his inquiry, Bhishma Dev first defined all classifications of varna and ashram in terms of individual qualifications. Then he systematically described counteraction by detachment, interaction by attachment. So basically, how when to detach, when to execute one's duties. He explained all those details to him. He spoke about the all of these things. He explains to Raj, and after explaining all of these things, then he explains the occupational duties, and he gives so many historical examples. And in this way, he completely clarifies the doubts. He not just convinces Yudhishthira Maharaj to become king, but he also equips Maharaj to be a better king. And in this way, after explaining everything, Bhishma Dev observed that the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere, that the Uttarayana has come. So then in this period, he desired to actually pass away, because not Vishwanath Chakravarti says he was not waiting for Uttarayana. Uttarayana means the sun actually passing to the northern hemisphere. He was waiting for Krishna, who is also called as Uttarayana, because he is the one who entered into the Ayana, is also womb, Uttara's Ayana. So the one who entered into the womb of Uttara to save Parikshit, that Lord is also called as Uttarayana. So he was waiting for Krishna's arrival. Now that Krishna has come, there is nothing more auspicious to leave his body than in Krishna's presence. So now that Krishna is here and he executed the last will of Krishna to serve in this way by instructing Yudhishthira, he fulfilled that will of Krishna also, and Krishna is personally present. So he was completely satisfied. As Prabhupada said, and even no desires when he was about in the last days of his life. Similarly, all his desires were fulfilled, and he is experiencing the personal reciprocation of Krishna. So with fully satisfied heart, he wanted to just focus his attention exclusively on Krishna and leave his body. And that's what will his meditation we will see in the coming session. What are his prayers that he offered? What are his desires at that moment of leaving? And what are his prayers? And how did he pass? We will see that in the following week. And thank you. And I was a little over time. It's 10:30. Grateful for your attention and presence. Hare Krishna, Mother Gail, I do see your hand raised.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Boy, this was an amazing class. So amazing that you're going to have to stop me if you want other people to get a chance. So the first thing, I just want, there's certain things that went too fast for me, so I couldn't catch. So yes, Uttarayana means that time when the sun goes to the north. But Ayana also means the womb, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. And then when you just before that, you talked about counteraction, interaction. That was too fast for me. I didn't get.
What was it about?
It was just now. Just now, you were talking about counteraction, this interaction, that. Okay, I'll have to listen to recording.
Yeah, I'm not as mindful as an attentive like you. I just speak.
Maybe somebody else can help me. Maybe I'm sure they heard.
I don't know what I spoke.
Okay,
Is counteracting? I'm
that's okay,
exactly
Prabhu.
not sure.
I'll listen. I'll
Yeah.
re-listen.
Yes.
Also, that statement you made where you said Krishna, something like Krishna doesn't. Oh, we might be inclined to think that once we trust Krishna, then we will receive his mercy, basically. That's like that verse 10:14:8, right? That dialogue. But I was wondering, is it correct to say that Krishna never really withholds his mercy, but as long as we don't really have trust in him, then then we won't be able to experience or perceive the mercy that he is already giving us, not that he's withholding it. That's a correct statement.
Yes. Means it's a gradual process of evolution of consciousness. In at a certain state, we may not be even fully able to understand how much Krishna is making arrangements for us to come closer to him, and we may not be even grateful for those things. But Krishna still does it because he knows essentially we love him and we want to come back to him, but we are distracted about it. He will continue to make his efforts to make us come closer to him gradually. And yeah, he does a lot of thankless service.
Yeah, like a parent.
Yes.
Do so much. The child may think that I'm not getting any mercy because I'm not doing what my parent wants, but the mercy is always being distributed. It's just a matter of our not being able to understand how it's mercy. It's more like that, right?
Yeah, a child can never get off the mind of a parent, especially mother. Whatever they may do, they may not do, still they will always be in the forefront of the mind of the mother, the parent. So similarly, Krishna always is looking out for us, even when we are unconscious of his love.
Okay, Prabhu, we were saying that it's not that Krishna was pointing a finger at, it's not that Bhishma was pointing any fingers at Krishna, but at the same time, he did point a finger at him when he was talking about Krishna being time. So I think one of the things you said was that, yes, Krishna, he is the one, or Yudhishthira should not feel that Yudhishthira is the only person playing a role here. It's not that Krishna is like completely not responsible. It's just that it's more like a team effort? I don't know.
Yeah, means it would look like blaming Krishna if he says, "Oh, you're suffering." Krishna is the cause of your suffering. Instead, he uses the energy which executes that in terms of the time. And he also does not mince the word when he says, hey, the time is all like under the will of Krishna. Ultimately, it's will of Krishna. It's not just time in an impersonal way, especially for a devotee. So it's a mood, I would say. It's an etiquette and mood that a devotee does not blame Krishna for their sufferings, but rather understands with faith. And while explaining it to others also, if it would be like, yeah, Krishna is the cause of your suffering, so can actually agitate the mind of the devotee. So while explaining also, it is explained in a sensitive way. Okay, it's all time. We all have to go through in this world. Nobody is spared. And ultimately, everything is Krishna's will. So it's like explained in a more like a kind of a sensitive way, gradually giving the pill. Like diplomatic. Yeah, it's diplomatic, I would say.
But this is my problem with diplomacy, that we don't want to put all the blame on Krishna, but at the same time, we do share some responsibility, no? So what is our responsibility? Is our responsibility the fact that we have a consciousness that needs to be corrected? Is that our responsibility?
Yeah, the doctor prescribes a certain medicine. Someone gets a sweet medicine, someone gets a bitter medicine, bigger pill, smaller pill, swallowable. So the doctor cannot be blamed completely why you made that choice, because it's our disease which is he is trying to help us. So similarly, we have a certain our consciousness is not fully purified. So we have created a lot of problems for our own selves. So Krishna is like trying to use all of that to somehow bring us still back. Because even if we are not devotees, it's not that there is no suffering in the world if you're not a devotee. Karma is anyway there. People are suffering. But as a devotee, the benefit that we receive is at the end of the suffering, it's not just the suffering, or it's not the happiness, it's not our achievements. At the end of it all, who is waiting? Our ultimate benefit that we receive is we gain Krishna. But a non-devotee, despite going through everything in life, all the achievements and lack of achievements, everything that they also go through, they don't get Krishna at the end. But our ultimate benefit is that we receive Krishna in the journey.
But Krishna loves all of his children, devotee and non-devotee. Even though non-devotees are not trying for a relationship with Krishna, he is still, just like he's doing with us, right? He is still trying to correct their consciousness too, no?
Yes. But the treatment is different. If a student goes to educational department, they are under the government. If a person goes to the prison department, they are also under the government. The treatment is different. So when somebody is a non-devotee, they may go through the karma cycle and the hellish planets and all the other kinds of treatments, reformation system. For a devotee, there is little bit more personal attention. So it's not under the influence, it's not like under the purview of the law of karma system, law karmic system.
Yeah, but since the non-devotee, he's not aspiring for Krishna, then what is really supposed to be the fruit of Krishna trying to rectify their consciousness?
That somehow with all the kicks that one receives, that it could be awakened in their mind that, oh, why am I suffering? What is the purpose of life? That at least, so there is a chance they could come across some spiritual person or a spiritual path, an association of devotee. Through that intense suffering that they're going through, they may just wake up and ask these questions, hey, why am I suffering so much?
Okay, so it tills the soil, makes them more receptive in the event, that off chance that they run across a devotee.
And the same principle applies to devotees also. After coming to bhakti, we may still go through, and then we'll be like, okay, what do I do? So that's when we are engaging in hearing and chanting and reading all these sections, we will be like impressed. It is impressed on our minds that, okay, all your suffering is not random. There is a particular thing you have in your consciousness that Krishna is trying to rectify. So the more we willingly actually listen to the words of our spiritual master and try to follow, it's not that there is no guarantee whether we'll suffer or not. We will become more and more Krishna conscious.
Yeah, yeah. And the devotee who is suffering, how does he know for sure that I should have gotten a broken leg, but instead I just got a scratch? How does he know that?
It is an emotion, I would say. We cannot clearly know what is what. But what is the attitude? That attitude is usually comes by proper association and sadhana. It's a natural thing. It is a state of consciousness that will be a natural thing based on one's association and cultivation in bhakti.
Hey, but what is the basis for that emotion, that mood?
Is
Unless
association. That is the
otherwise
right
it's just
way. That is
sentimental.
that is how a devotee thinks. That's when someone's heart there is Krishna is there. That's how they will think. Like how Brahmaji is setting an example.
I don't know, but
Okay.
anyway,
It is an emotion. It is out of love and out of faith. That's a natural feeling that comes when we have faith in Krishna.
so that emotion, it really speaks more to their experience of Krishna's compassion.
Yes, their reciprocation that they are experiencing with Krishna.
Yeah,
Artificially, one cannot force oneself to think like that. We have to we have to come to that state of consciousness by practice of bhakti and association, inspiration. And Krishna will also give his mercy for us to be able to come there when we are sincere.
Yeah, so you must have had to have experienced so much compassion from Krishna in the past that now that you got into this car accident, you know that Krishna being as compassionate as he is, it is probably likely that my suffering should have been more. But because I know how compassionate he is, he's only giving me this, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, when bhajan is done properly under guidance and when it is developed in the right attitude and things are approached in the right attitude, it's a natural emotion that will come. Because sometimes devotees also can feel, oh, means I'm a devotee, why is this happening to me? And if we are conscious, we see that in our heart, then we can take guidance and then we again go to Krishna and express, oh, this is how I'm thinking. I'm not able to think in a positive way. And eventually that can also be rectified if we are honest and we approach and we are under the proper guidance. And we do see after certain experiences in life, we realize, oh, I thought that's such a bad thing to happen to me. And I see that how that has all turned out for my own good. So through those smaller experiences in life, gradually our faith in Krishna grows. So when in the future again there is another adversity, apparent adversity comes, we'll have this faith. It's that is why Prabhupada very beautifully writes in one of those purports. I'm not sure surely in this chapter he writes about bhava. He very clearly writes about the word bhava in the yeah. So here this is chapter verse 19. If you read this purport, it's so beautiful that Prabhupada writes that
What's the number? What's the
19th purport
of the first?
Yeah, this particular chapter 1, chapter 9, canto 1 and verse 19. In that he writes that tribulations imposed upon the devotees by the Lord constitute another exchange of transcendental bhava between the Lord and the devotees. Here they were speaking us when he speaks about bhavam, he says all these great devotees like Brahman, Bali Maharaj, all of these Mahajans, they all experience this bhava. And Prabhupada lists that perspiring, trembling, weeping, bodily eruptions, they are all signs of this bhava. Such different understandings of bhava are exchanged between Yashoda and the Lord, or the gopis and the Krishna, or Arjuna and Krishna, like this. He says, this is all great devotees are experiencing that. And he says, although situated in the transcendental position, all these great people, they became converted. He's speaking about Kumaras and Swami, all these Gyanis, they were all still converted by another feature of Bhava and turned into pure devotees because they came in touch with the Tulsi, they came in touch with Krishna Katha. There was a Bhava which was awakened in them that made them devotees. And he is equating that with the suffering that practicing devotees are going through. He is equating the ecstatic symptoms of the very advanced devotees and bhava experienced by someone like Swami and the Kumaras as an example from converting from Gyanis to Bhaktis. That emotion that they experience, love of Krishna that they experience, that's what he is calling as bhava. And he says, even practicing devotees are experiencing that same transcendental bhava, that affection for Krishna that I can see in the sufferings that I go through, in the difficulties of my life, or in the goodness in my life also. Everything that is happening in my life, the more I see Krishna's hand, the more there is an adventure there. There is a subtle, adventurous interaction happening between the devotee and the Lord. So
unfortunately, I'm not an adventurous person.
you have no option. You have chosen an adventurous Lord. So now you have no option but to experience adventure.
So just to make sure I got the analogy correct, when let's say the Kumaras smelt the tulsi leaves and that awakened their bhava, similarly, when we go through tribulations, like you said, it could be joys too, but let's say tribulations, right? When those tribulations, when we see how they have, I don't know, brought us closer to Krishna, then those tribulations are like the tulsi leaves, like that. Oh, yeah, muted. I can't hear you.
Basically, he's saying it's a devotional thing. Just a minute, Miguel. I have a call that I need to answer.
Please take it.
Just a I have more time. That's what the call was telling me. So we have no
Oh,
problem.
and just to put the other listeners at ease, I just have one last question. Just one last question. And my doorbell rang. Let me see. Who is that? Okay, go ahead.
So I was saying, you just said, is that like they're smelling the tulsi is the bhava?
Tribulation.
Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur also writes in a bhajan, the happiness and the distress that I experience in your service are my ecstasies. Like that he says. So similarly, as we grow in bhakti, even simple things that we experience in life, we can see how Krishna is bringing me closer. We become more and more aware. Smaller interactions also we understand, like how Prabhupada saw this person saying, hey, why are you, instead of this magazine, why are you not writing it as books? Immediately he saw, okay, this is my spiritual master speaking. And like this, the more and more we become advanced, the more and more we can see how Krishna is interacting in our lives. And we can take the cue. And the more we are proactive, we can avoid
delays in perception of Krishna.
Perception and persecutions also.
Okay, like in Christianity, you know that saying by Jesus Christ, thy will be done. He's expressing his trust in whatever Krishna, whatever.
His will be done. Yes.
Yes, he says, because he said that when he was about to be.
Thy will be done.
So yeah, even in that situation, he was expressing his trust to God for the Father. Thy will be done.
Yeah, means it's a very tall order, but fortunately we have examples to be able to take inspiration and gradually tread that path. So what we are trying to walk is not like a casual thing. We are trying to tread a path of surrender, and it takes tremendous amount of character. So in the path of bhajan, that's what we are developing, the character to actually surrender to Krishna.
Yeah, and Prabhu, you said that how do you know a person is a devotee is because they take time to hear and chant. There are people who take time to do that, but they're not pure, they're mixed. So like it's not just that you take time and chant. It has to be like an exclusive reliance on that, right?
Yeah, exclusive reliance, taking the time, and also under whose guidance, under whose spirit, like, also matters. What is who's the inspiration? So the seed that the guru gives, so in what line and what is the motivation, all of these things matter. When I was meaning as a devotee, I'm seeing in terms of someone who's qualified for Shuddha Bhakti, that seed. When Krishna takes that, okay, here is a person who's serious about developing a relationship with me. We may be covered, we may be distracted, but because we are performing bhajan under the inspiration of Prabhupada, so then we become qualified. So Guru is also, that's why it is important. Under whose inspiration are we taking it up?
Yes.
So what is the goal in which, the mood in which the spiritual master is offering that process?
Right.
If you buy a ticket, it's clear what is your destination. So we may be distracted loitering in the bus stand. The ticket is there for that destination. So the destination that Prabhupada has offered is clear. We may be distracted about it.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, just this the last thing is I just wanted to get clear about those three things that we should be taking shelter of. One was religious principles, the other was the guidance of a sadhu.
Yes,
And
and
the
the
last thing,
Supreme Lord's will himself, like taking shelter of the Lord himself.
see, now my problem with these three things is that there seems to be a lot of overlap here.
Yes,
And so
these
how would
verses are
you,
also spoken in a context. This was directly spoken to Yudhishthira Maharaj. We are also secondary audience in some of these things. So some of these verses are directed towards us more, some are directed towards Maharaj. So in Yudhishthira Maharaj's case, he had a clear religious principle as a king to fight, and he had his council of rishis and munis and sages and brahmanas. And he also had Krishna personally telling them to fight. So the context of that is specifically to Yudhishthira's situation. In our case, surely there will be overlap. And the most easiest thing for us to take shelter is the instructions of the spiritual master. As Prabhupada says, chanting, hearing the devotional processes, they are the first and foremost. And then we will have our own counsel in terms of seniors, friends, spiritual teachers.
okay, so basically the instructions of our spiritual master takes care of all three of those things: Krishna's will, sadhu's guidance, and religious principles. For us, the religious principles for us as practicing as Krishna Bhaktas sadhakas, religious principles refers to what? Just hearing, chanting, like this.
So in
Those
that
the nine
verse,
limbs.
Dharma is not necessarily speaking about spiritual sadhana. In that verse specific to Yudhishthira Maharaj, Dharma was his Raja Dharma, his Kula Dharma, and all of those things are all included. So we are deriving a principle from that. So when we are exclusively just applying it to our spiritual life, then it becomes, however, for different devotees, it could be different. For a devotee who is working and living in the world, then dharma of taking care of family, working, and all of those things also is there. So there are principles how to do it, what not to do, and those things also will come into picture for different devotees according to their social and spiritual orders. Things could be slightly different, but we tend to mostly exclusively take it for spiritual life. So in that sense, you may say, okay, it is Shravanam and Kirtan.
Okay, and then Supreme Krishna's will, that's basically synonymous with Guru's
Instruction, but the more we advance in bhakti, we'll be able to clearly understand the individual in our own individual lives, how Krishna's will is playing and what we should let go, what we should do. That it becomes more clear and central as the devotee actually advances in bhakti further. Like for Prabhupada, it was going to the West and preaching, like his will of his spiritual master, Rupa Goswami appearing to him, his spiritual master appearing to him, and more customized. So the more they advance, it becomes more customized.
Okay. You've been extremely patient, Prabhu, as has everyone else. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. You are all patient also with me.
For so much mercy.
It's my fortune that I get forced to study. It's fun to actually start something, but after a while, you just have to track through. And some days I feel like, oh, wish I could just pray, have a break, not give the class. But I'm like, okay, let me just study and see what I can do. So I'm very grateful that I'm also being dragged forcefully to perform some devotional service. And it's also Bhishma these last 5 days of Kartik. So it's an amazing opportunity. We are speaking and glorifying Bhishma Deva on these days. So thank you.
Yeah, actually, I thought that we were getting another break today. I thought you weren't going to start until next week. So I joined late. And then when I learned,
I thought, okay, let me not give. It's been a month almost, so I thought, let me get back to the routine.
Yeah, I wanted another break, but I too am being dragged. You dragged me, so we dragged each other.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for your time, attention, and staying so long. Thank you. See you all soon.